Good evening and welcome to True Encounters. I'm your host, Marvin Allen. Again, I would like to apologize because I haven't been uploading no new material, but a lot of y'all know my situation as far as my laptop, and I'm doing it off of my phone. I really have a really good one for y'all, but I might save that one to the weekend to do it because that's one of my past guests that I did on Doug Man Encounters about a little young girl, and she had another encounter. It took me about 4 to 5 months to get this encounter out of her because she was so traumatized and she really didn't want to tell nobody. But she knew she had to, talk to somebody. So without further ado, we're going to get in this encounter. Now, this encounter happened in the South. I will not say where at because the people asked me not to. So, without further ado, let's get into this encounter. Okay, one summer, this girl said that she was visiting, you know, her grandparents. And on her grandparents, you know, they got a lot of vegetables and stuff they grow. They have a few animals. And one day said she was out walking around the family farm. And she said that they had this old barn that, that set all the way in the back. That they kept like, old tractors and stuff like that in there. And she said while she was walking, she knew that it had got dead quiet. She couldn't hear nothing. She said, but she had got this feeling like something was watching her. So she said she turns around. And just up in the tree line, she said she see these amber color eyes. But she don't know what it is. But she can see the silhouette of this thing because it's real low. It's down, like it's on all fours. So she turns around, continue walking. Now she walking in the direction to where this car was, not that far from this barn. So when she looked back again, she see another one of these creatures. But this time, this creature has its back to her. Like it was eating something at the time. So she stands there about 8 feet from where this car at. Then she noticed this first creature started to walk towards her. She said that's when her dog started barking real loud. She said that's when that first creature let out that growl. And that growl scared her and her dog so bad that that dog started whimpering and tucked its tail between its legs. So she said she gets inside the car, her and her dog. So she's sitting in the chair, she locks all the doors, and she watching this creature. So this creature takes a few more steps and it stops. Now she could see this creature because this night the moon was out. So she got a good look at it. She said that this creature had a head of a shepherd because she had dogs before, so she know how a shepherd head look. She said it had the long snout, the pointed ears. She said this thing had shoulders, long arms that ended in hands. I repeat that again, what she told me. She said that this thing had hands with black claws. So she watching this creature. And after about a few seconds, she said this other creature turns around. Then it stands up on its hind legs. And in his right hand, it had something that it was eating on. She don't know what it was, but it was eating on something. She said that's when this creature took some steps out of the tree line, walking towards the first one. Said this thing stood about 5 feet from behind the first creature. She said then that first creature walked down to the car where she was at, walked around to the passenger side and looked down in the window. When it looked down in the window, the dog looked up at it, then started whining real bad again. And then it put its head down in the seat and it started urinating all over itself. So the girl looks over at it. When it looks over at it, said this thing looked like it smiled at her. And it showed all its teeth. Like it's telling her, yeah, I can get you. She said then that second creature walked down. And when it walked down, it stood in front of that car. And when it stood in front of that car, she said it placed his hands on the hood of that car and it started rocking that car. Started rocking that car back and forth. She said she took her phone because she was going to call. At the time, she wanted to take a picture of this thing, but she was so scared. When she was trying to do it, she drops her phone down in the front seat. Trying to grab it and look at them at the same time. When she was doing that, that's when both of these creatures growled at her. So she put her arm back up, not touching the phone. She said then that second creature went around to the driver's side and it tried that lock. It tried to get in, but luckily she had them doors locked so these things couldn't get in. She said that second creature looked it like the first one. She said, but it had patches of white on it, just over across its shoulder, like it had thicker hair, like it had a mane. So this creature watching her is just looking straight at her. Now, mind you, she's scared to look at these things in the eye because she don't know what's going to happen or what they're going to do. So after about a few more seconds, she said both creatures walked back to the front of this car. And when it walked back to the front of this car, they just stood there and they watched her. And she watching these creatures. And she's saying in her mind, I know my family is worried about me. I know they know I got to be out here somewhere. But like I said, she was scared to call them. She said that's when that first creature continued. It walked over towards the barn. And when it walked over there towards that old barn, she said that thing started sniffing the air. And when it started to sniff the air, that thing must have heard something. It must have heard something. Because just about 5 feet behind it, you could see a cat run up out of that barn and start to run. That's when that Doug man was on it. That Doug man ran that cat down and grabbed it. And when it grabbed it, now mind you, she watching all this. She watching all this. She watched that Doug man pull this cat apart. And when it pulled that cat apart, it threw the remains in her direction over there by the car. One striking the front fender of the car. That's when that second creature looked down. When it looked down, it picked up the head of this cat. It picked up the head of this cat. And I don't know what it was thinking. And this thing put the head of the cat in his mouth and just crushed down on his bone. You could, I mean, it's like she can hear the bones cracking in this cat's head. Her mouth dropped. She said it's like she couldn't move. And when that creature did that, you know, blood was squirting all on his muzzle and all that. It dropped it. She said then she could hear in the distance someone calling her name. People calling her name. You know, it was a little far, but they was calling her name, so they knew she was out there somewhere. So when they called her name, that first creature made some kind of noise. Then that second creature looked and it started walking in the direction of that first creature. Now, she said that these creatures looked alike, but she said one was bigger. Like one had to be 7.5, almost 8 feet tall. Then she said the other one was a little smaller. Now, this is what she told me because she got a good look. She said she know that big one was a male. But she said that second one, to her, was a female. Because she said she could see what looked like breasts, followed with these things, the little, what they call the teeths that comes underneath of it. So she said she knew that was a female. So when the female got over there where the male was, they walked diagonally over to the left and went round the side of that barn. And round the side of that barn, in the back of it, is a small patch of woods. So she thinking that's where these creatures must have went at. Now, mind you, family still calling her. They get close to her. She's scared to get out the car because she don't know where these things at. She don't know if they gonna come around and bum rush the car or not. She said, so as she's looking in that direction, she could see, her family coming down a little small trail towards her. That's when she opened the door and she say, here I go, here I go. She grabs a dove, pick it up and carries over there. They telling her, what are you doing out here this late? You know it's dark. What are you doing? She said, Granddaddy, I'm sorry. She said, but it was these things out here. I don't know what they was. They looked like werewolves or something. So grandfather said, come on, let's go in the house. I need to talk to you. Grandfather takes in the house. He tells her, I know about these things because I seen them when I was a little boy. If you don't bother them, they won't bother you. He said, but I'm going to tell you. He said, I'm going to tell you a story about when I first seen them. I had to be about 10 or 11 years old. He said, I was outside. I was outside playing, chasing the chickens around and stuff like that. And one had ran up towards, the tree line. So when I walk up there, chasing the chicken toward the tree line, he noticed that the chicken had stopped. The chicken had stopped, like it just froze. So he walks up while the chicken had stopped, and he picked it up, and it started going crazy and crazy. He was like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? So he said, why he picked it up, he said the chicken accidentally scratched him. He let him go, and it ran back down towards the property. So he said he looks up, and when he looks up, that's when he first saw one of these creatures. He said now the one that he seen was gray, but it was on 2 feet. It was bipedal, standing just out of the tree line. She said this. He said this thing was huge. Said it had a giant head. It had shoulders, the long arms, the bent back legs. He said this thing did have a tail because he said this thing was on an angle. That's how he could see this fluffy tail. He said, so he watching this creature. He said, and this creature watching him. He said, so he started to walk back. But this creature's still watching him with them orange eyes. He's watching him. Said this creature had orange eyes, but it's still watching him. He said, as he walking back, he said this creature started walking to his left. And when it's walking to his left, this creature kept his eyes on him. He kept his eyes on him. And when it walked to the left, it stopped. He said then this creature had made some kind of noise. He don't know what kind of noise was. I'm just giving it to you like, the grandfather gave it to me. He said when that creature made that noise, he seen 4 more of these things come up out that tree line and stand about 3 feet from behind that gray one. He said that when he seen that, he started walking back faster, faster, faster. And when he got almost towards the house, his his father had came out. His father came out. And he's standing there, stuck, froze. And he said, son, what's wrong with you? And he pointed. And when he pointed, the father seen these things standing up in the tree line. Father runs in. He gets his shotgun. When he goes back out, they still standing there. He said, but when he aimed at these creatures, he said these creatures dispersed. Poof. Went in different directions, running fast through the woods, through this tree line, breaking down shit. These creatures was gone. He said, that's just, he said, and he was telling his granddaughter, he said, I just want to let you know that I saw these things too. He said, so be careful because they on the property and these things was here way before we was. So that's our encounter. And I just wanted to give you that. I'm going to check and see what else I have because I want to give y'all another counter. So I hope y'all like it and thank you.